So, Chris, I would like to say to you, thank you very much for not asking me how much money I make.
Oh, that was my next question. But, okay, continue.
Well, because, writers should not expect to make a lot of money. They should not expect to make enough to support themselves at first. You need something else. I supported my writing by teaching. I was taught at Oxford and blah, blah, blah. But I do want to say that I showed you how with my second novel, my third novel, I was made to do things to make it appeal to younger, and I got fed up with that. But, on the other side, look at what actually happened with Nice Fire and Some Moon Pennies. The American edition has this childish cover, and that dismayed me. But then, it was actually of such interest that it was translated and published and put on high school courses in Denmark.
Wow.
Yeah, and these are the two books on the high school course in Denmark. And then, as time went on, it was republished in England in paperback. And back when it was first published, paperbacks were just regarded as trash books, and Macmillan would never do a paperback. But several years later, they're doing paperbacks, and this was in the Penguin Peacock series. And the Penguin Peacock series was taking just what I so wanted to be part of and actually managed, where they take stories that are about teenagers. And there's one by Tolstoy in here. I forget the actual name of it, but because it's about a teenager, and very established and revered authors, and A Nice Fire and Some Moon Pennies was in that series. It didn't last forever, but it made it there, and it was eventually translated and published in Japan. And what was additionally interesting about that was this was the first Canadian novel after Anne of Green Gables, whom the Japanese love, Lucy Maud Montgomery, and it was the first Canadian novel after the Anne of Green Gables series to be published in Japan. But then after that there were several, because that was the flourishing of Canadian literature novels in the mid-70s. So, they do well, and it's not all about the money.
That's pretty impressive.
Oh, thank you. And now I should point out, you guys all know this, that young adult books are, what do you tend to call them? Teen books?
Yeah, just teen novels.
Teen novels.
Yeah.
All the publishers now are begging authors to come and give them, because it has become the most lucrative of all the genres. So yeah, it takes a long time.
Yeah, but the outcome the outcome was great by the end of it, even though it did take a while.
Yeah, yeah.
So, back to when you were a child, when was the first experience or the first time you learned that language actually had power and started to set you on a path to become a writer?
It didn't really happen like that for me, in that I realized language had power. I just wanted to write things down. So what I did, and here it is, I still have this little treasure. When I was 7 going on 8, my dad got this little book, which is a business diary, and gave it to me because he wasn't using it. And I started recording in here. At that time we were renting the back half of an elegant old farmhouse in a farming community, and it was had been a really well-run farm. So I've talked about this before, so I've quite memorized it. I don't need to point to the actual page. But you know, when I reread it as an adult, what I was doing in here was I would record things like, Jenny Hen laid another egg today. And I would record, we won in world hockey. And then the other kind of thing I recorded was goober, new expression, goober. So what I was doing was having a journal in which I wasn't recording how I feel and, oh, poor me, or, you know, all my visions and stuff. It was looking at the world around me and what was actually going on. And so there's the world right beside me, which is the chicken in the barnyard. And then there's the world stage where Canada has won in hockey. And the other one is getting good at knowing how people really do speak, using the, you know, the current vocabularies and expressions, and so that's probably why I, you know, got good at dialogue, because I was making sure I did it the way people really spoke.
Wow. How long on average does it take you to write a book?
It's been different for each one, and I'm embarrassed about how long it's been between books for me, but I'm not that embarrassed, because I think that we have enough books, and we don't need a lot more, but we always need good ones that are saying something new. And my books are each different from each other, and I like to think they're doing something different and important in each one. So, as I told you, Moon Pennies took me from September to June, and also my second one actually took about a year of writing with some research. And when I get down to the actual writing, I do it within, I look at it now, about 8 months to get the first draft, unless you have some really major interference. And but there's a lot of research there, and there's a lot of just living and thinking, and so that's about it. I think, you know, a year of concentrated writing, but it's hard for writers who aren't able to work full-time at it to get that.
Yeah.
So don't worry if, you know, it takes you 2 months or 2 years. You know, just do what fits your life. Yeah, as long as you do it.
Okay. And if you had to do something differently when you were either a child or a teenager to become a better writer than you are today, what would you do, or would you do anything at all?
Oh, I shouldn't tell you this because it's not fair. I would marry a good wife. I think, you know, women writers are jealous of you know, men writers who have a wife who do all the work so they can just write. So that's not fair to say to you, because your generation is different. You and whoever you end up with will share responsibilities of children and all that. So that's a terrific thing now. I think that is one of the most progressive things in society, that in a married or, you know, a life partnership, you share the work and duties. But you know, being someone who writes from life, I've had a very rich life. I moved around a lot in different places, and you know, why would I want to change that? No, I have never wanted to be someone who just went to their room every day and wrote and did not have children. I mean, I have contemporary women writer friends who wouldn't have children because you wouldn't be able to write much if you did. But it's not like that now. It's not like that. So, nope.
And when was the first time you wrote a story other than inside your diary? And how old were you then when you wrote it?
I told you about going to a schoolhouse with 8 grades in one room, and I was then eight going on 9, and I didn't write. What I wrote was, I called it a newspaper, and I called it the Nature Annual, because I thought annual meant every week. And I wrote this little newspaper that I wrote by hand and cut out pictures of the birds have come back, and so it was about what was happening in the springtime around the school. It wasn't really about people, and I rented that to the other students for 2 cents a copy. and that was my first publication. And I didn't do another one of it because it was too much work doing all that by hand.
So how did it feel as you were renting it out to people and they were reading stuff that you yourself had written?
That was what I would call fun. And, they'd comment on it. And they didn't all say all nice things at all, but they thought it was cool to do that. Yeah.
Okay. So thank you so much for having us here, Doris. It was really, really great being the one to interview you. It's
such a pleasure for me, Chris, because I can see in you, and I picture all the others, and I'm going to get choked up here, who really love writing and want to do something with it, and don't kill yourself over it. There's other ways of life that are very good and rewarding. And to just answer a little more of that last question, I grew up and I never told anyone I want to be a writer. I kept that to myself, and I would never say that I'm a writer until I published my first book. So it's really something deep within those of us who keep going into old age. It's something, as Lucy Maud Montgomery said, don't do it unless you can't not do it. And I just can't not do another book or be beating myself up because I'm not doing it.